We're seeing all this really worrying kind of news on TV right now, and what people tell us, and I think that in living in such a worrying kind of reality, my talk is basically about this, but it uses TV as the main point. So I'd like to talk about that today. I hope you'll have good questions about this because I think it's an important subject. Okay? So if you watch television, you can look at whatever you want to watch, and it will show you anything you want to watch, and you can watch it as often as you want. It also will show you what you don't like and don't want to watch, and you can watch that too, which we often do anyway. And programs will show you the best and the worst in people and in life if you let it. And they show it as an entertainment form. And we relax to watch the worst about people and events, even though the shows often will have the worst effect on us afterwards. So early Buddhists were encouraged to be very careful of the people they hung out with, and they did that to avoid undue bad influence that would cause some obstacles to their practice. But on TV, we can hang out with the worst of the worst for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or even a marathon. And we do it guilt-free, it seems. In programs, we're encouraged to have unhappy or angry emotions and thoughts. We don't even realize it. And in some shows, we can look in on a criminal mind to know what it feels like to be utterly cruel or violent. And we don't see the resemblance in that kind of movie to clinging to our thinking mind that also indulges in great distress inside. So we live in a time when we can pick and choose everything we want. Do we want to watch this show or that, eat this or that, smile or frown, exercise or relax, wear this or that, meditate or work? We can even reach out or ignore. We have these choices all the time that come up in our lives, and for the most part, we ignore how we make them. We don't even see us making them. But we often act on our emotions and lose ourselves in thinking. So how can we be making intelligent choices in our lives all the time and be so preoccupied at the same time? We have to bring ourselves back to us. That's our prime important act. Bring ourselves back to us, here, now. Understanding that, we come to a zazenkai. And you could say that instead of watching TV, we choose to watch mind-body in a marathon, like a zazenkai. So I'm just talking about we live in the kind of time where we can pick and choose everything, but we're so preoccupied that we never even notice our choices. And it's encouraged by watching TV even more so. So we're used to just hanging loose and not even noticing the emotions and the thoughts that keep welling up in us from TV shows. So instead of 1 hour in a zazenkai, instead of 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or a marathon day on TV, we instead do it on the cushion, looking only at what arises in our mind and body. And there is such diversity of thoughts, imagination, and feeling that we're actually entertained on the cushion for as long as we sit. However, it's not necessarily happy entertainment. And it can be engrossing, surprising, shocking, interesting, moving, and informative entertainment while we sit and look at it as entertainment. This doesn't mean you shouldn't be looking at it, at your mind. You can start off looking at it as entertainment, but after a while it becomes hard work because then you're trying to let go, let go, let go every moment, even while you're watching it. So we're as absorbed by our thoughts and feelings on the cushion as much as by TV. In a short 30 minutes, we can experience an annoyed, cruel, happy, or miserable mind. We can experience an unpleasant, extreme, or comfortable mind. we can know what a frantic, fearful mind is, and all the time we're just sitting on one cushion or chair. But on the cushion, we tend to stay aware instead of dreaming. And so we can deal wisely with what shows up in our body and mind. On TV, we terrify ourselves with horror stories. And we feel compassion in unhappy ones. And we learn from watching documentaries. And we're shocked at the violence we watch, but we watch it anyway. It's titillating because it seems so up close and personal, and yet we aren't touched by it. But I wonder if that is really true. We become oblivious to a cruel mind and emotions as entertainment. But we ignore fearful minds these shows bring up in us. And do we really forget them when we turn off the TV? And do we not predispose ourselves to act ignorantly from hidden influences that are of a negative value? We can turn off the TV when we've had enough, but we can't turn off TV-influenced thoughts and feelings, or even the horrific images. We can't even turn off our body sensations brought about by graphic images and ferocious language. We have to deal with what is present in our mind and body, because there's no button to turn the sound up or down, and there's no button to mute the feelings or sensations, or even turn off the unacknowledged fear that we get from watching graphic images on TV of violence. I wonder then, does this mean we should turn off the TV or hide from the news? I think not. We live in a world that's reflected on TV, and we meet these influences everywhere, whether we absorb them from watching TV or not. But we must remember that the TV is always a reflection of us, even as we must pick and choose wisely in ordinary life. We must pick and choose wisely what to watch on TV. If we're aware of what we feel and experience and the thoughts that a show arouses in us, we should pay attention to that. Maybe we should not even turn that one on. However, since most of it is something like that, it's hard to watch TV and not absorb some of it. So what do you do in that case? I think as in ordinary life, we cannot forget the reality, even while watching a show. We cannot forget the reality we are actually residing in. You can't be sitting watching a horrific show about some destruction of a whole world, and at the same time you're sitting in your living room watching TV, eating some cake or cookie or having a cup of tea and watching these horrific images. And your mind may leap to the horrific image, but the thing is that when that happens, you have to be aware that's what you're doing. You have to not forget you're in the living room drinking coffee or tea and having a cake or cookie. You cannot forget that even while you're watching these horrific images. So if you get lost in them, then the influence that you receive from such kinds of negativity goes inside and stays there, but you don't even see it. You're not aware of it. As long as you're aware, I'm in the living room watching this show, those influences can only come so far. And you're aware, even if the negative thought is there, you see it and you can work with that. So don't forget where you actually are, no matter what you look at. And this is true not just in the TV watching, it's true everywhere. To never forget where you actually are. Then whatever comes your way, you're ready in dealing with it. If we're going to live with all the flotsam and jetsam of reality that we take in from TV, we have to remain balanced. In meditation, we have to make friends with who we really are, who we actually are, and that we discover on the cushion. Then we let go of mistaken ideas, and in meditation, thought by thought, we can let go of unnecessary ideas that we've dressed ourselves up with.
Peter, there's not on the door.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have to ignore all the armor that we've put on in self-defense. Most of the time, we're not even aware that we're carrying such a heavy load. Okay. In meditation, thought by thought, we have to let go of these ideas that we personally, ourselves, choose to dress ourselves up with. We have to let go of the armor that we wear to defend ourselves, always. These are usually ideas also, but fairly strong ideas. And we have to let go of all the clever, colorful cloak and coats we wear from TV ideas. We may think we're this kind of person, and we try it out. Then we think we're this kind of person, and then we try that one out. But the thing is that when we change, we still keep hanging on to the one we think we were or thought we were. It just goes underground, and we don't see it so much. Okay, so we have to learn to recognize all of those fancy things when we're sitting, and one by one, let them go, let them go. They usually come up in our thoughts, and they also come up in our feelings, and they also come up in our body sensations. So we have to maintain equanimity and balance, and we have to mainly come back to ourselves here in this moment, whether we are watching, shopping, talking, exercise, or doing any other kind of activity. And in this way, we will let go of the spiritual poisons that we've taken in from not just TV, but from everywhere. So can we not just turn off the TV and leave the noise and confusion behind? We could if the troubles were all really on the outside. So can we not just turn off the TV and cut down all that trouble in our lives, just to get rid of part of it? And if all the troubles on the TV were really on the outside, we could do that, but they aren't. All the troubles we experience and the reason we absorb negativity from the TV is not because of the program, because a balanced person can watch a negative thing and not be influenced by it. We are influenced by the negativity from the TV because we believe a lot of the things we're seeing, and we don't believe in our own ground that we stand on. Because once you find a solid ground to stand on, no matter what you see on the outside, it will just be a reflection and you can deal with it. You understand what you have to do. It's like you walk out there and you see killing or murder or every kind of possible horrific situation. But you know, first of all, that's an image. That's a TV show. That's not in real life. I am here. This is real life. So far. At least this far. And whatever emotions you absorb from that show, you can see them coming in and you can handle them. When you're out with other people, and the same thing happens with people, somebody gets very negative and they start throwing it off on you, you don't have to panic. You just look at it, see what's happening, take it in, but leave it right where it is. You don't have to deepen it. You don't have to increase it, and you don't have to believe it. You have to understand that even that negativity is a reflection from your interior. And so you look at it and know how to deal with it. And for us, equanimity is the biggest way to deal with it. Patience in meditation, but equanimity in dealing with negativity everywhere. Most importantly, never forgetting where you actually stand. Okay? So, can we turn it off? No, because all the troubles are not really coming from the outside. The negativity is not really coming from the outside, even though it appears that way. The confusion that we feel with negativity, always, even positive things, can make us a mess, because you get so inflated and removed from your life, you forget, I am here. I am here. So, the confusion comes from us, whether we see it on TV or just feel it in our mind and body, and it follows us wherever we go. No matter where, even a good situation, that negativity will be present if we have it unacknowledged. We may find a quiet life somewhere, very peaceful setting, but we might even just put everything that we think is terrifying outside of us, and we could ignore it or try to hide it. We put it, though, when we hide it, we put it in some unacknowledged place in us, which makes it way more hard to deal with. Because first of all, you move on it without knowing it. And then secondly, when you do sit and try to find it, it's very clever. You know, you really have to penetrate your own ignorance to see it. And to do that requires extreme calmness. Okay? So whether a good thing or a bad thing, anything that we cling to is a poison. And it's slow acting or fast acting, and will have its say in our lives when its time comes to flower in us. We have our thoughts wherever we are. Our fears and worried imaginations will follow us everywhere, and our hidden anxieties remain until we uproot them in meditation. Like today, when you have an all-day thing, it's a very good way to start to uproot the things that are really hindering you in your everyday life. Okay, so my last thing is that meditation is our secret weapon to get rid of our negativity, to get rid of the negative influences we take in from TV, from ordinary life, and from our worst worried imaginations. Patience is our superpower in meditation. If you have patience, you can do anything, I think. What is the one? Patience can move mountains? Or is it something else? Faith can move mountains. Never mind. I think patience can move mountains too. Patience is our superpower in meditation. Equanimity is our superpower to avoid the poisons of TV and the poisons from negativity everywhere. And balance is the joy we feel when we cultivate these ways to live. Any questions?
How do you see children, young children, watching all these bad shows, horrific scenes?
Well, children don't have a choice. You know, in most cases, they're not even aware that they're feeling something. They're completely learning about their emotions and thoughts. And most of them, even when we're 20 and 30, have a hard time understanding that the thoughts are just coming through. So that's up to a good parent, I think, to take care that their children don't get lost in these kind of negative shows.
My daughter, when she was a little kid, I never let her watch all these, scene, only Mr. Roger Neighborhood, actually. And I sat with her and all this, and now her fiance watching show like what, I don't even watch.
True crime stuff.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And they can't sit together watching the show. And then not a crime scene or something like makeup story, whatever that cut off the head. I don't know. I don't remember the
videos,
whatever on TV,
yeah,
TV. Those come in once a week, and
Yeah.
she just not gonna do it. And her fiance, well, I would just watch by myself. And Sarah just said, I don't know, I gotta go to see my mom. So they're just not together when. Why do you think that they have to live together?
I think that you can't inoculate yourself against the negativity in the world, and it's like a body trying to be too antiseptic, too pure, and all the bacteria and germs are everywhere. And so if you hide yourself from everything, then you make yourself vulnerable to everything. So you learn to adapt and to deal with things wisely. And when a child is very young, if you don't protect them somewhat, from this negativity, they don't understand what it does to them. So I would protect them up to a certain age. But after a time when they can decide for themselves, I believe they should decide for themselves, and they should understand the consequences of those decisions. And the main thing is that if you can't inoculate yourself to the negativity in the world, You cannot, because if you do, you literally have to stop living in the world. And I don't think anybody wants to do that.
So I just have to tell her that, oh, you are here.
Yes.
And the TV is in the box, and someone make up a story about it, right?
Yes.
And
Don't forget, you are
here.
present. You are present in the scene, and you are watching a horrific movie, and you forget that you're sitting in a living room drinking tea, and and this horrific action is going on. But you're divided from it. But you can maintain equilibrium in the face of it. You don't have to absorb the negativity from it. You can watch it though, because I think you can't hide from the reality of the world we live in. And we live in a world where all of this is part of it. And all of this really comes from us in the first place. And it's a way, if you use the TV as a way of learning, then you don't waste that time. If you understand that what you're watching is a reflection from you inside, you can literally study yourself. And you can see these are possibilities within my makeup. And if it's cruel, unusual, horrible activity, you can say that is also a possibility in my makeup. But it's like, I choose to be this way. You have all possibilities. Everybody has every possibility. And you choose who you want to be. You choose by your choices what life you want to live and what expectations you have of yourself in the world. So if you live in a world where there's all of this violence on TV, then you can study. This is the possibilities. These are the possibilities I have, and they are in me as long as I see them. And so you can uproot all of this in meditation through equanimity, through patience. And you have to be aware that these are possibilities. If you look at it and say, oh, that's just on the outside, then you're ignoring the truth of what you're looking at. So for Sarah, she wants to know probably what the world is, and her husband is a way to do it. So she can watch with him, but she doesn't have to lose herself in the programs.
That was her fiance kept saying that it's a makeup story.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
makeup, and so
It is.
it's still scary, like blood everywhere.
Yeah, even if you watch a documentary about a true situation, you're still watching a possibility that arose out of your interior. And you can study yourself and learn about yourself and widen your understanding about troubles in the world and the people who suffer in the world. You can widen that perception just by studying these things and understanding that the influence of it comes from our interior. And we can't wash our hands and say, oh, those are terrible. That's a terrible situation. Those are terrible people. We're intrinsically together. And so we can't not understand what we're looking at when we're seeing suffering in the world, whether it's violence or cruelty or whatever. It's coming from us, and we have to uproot all of that in us first. Not by saying, oh, I can be pure, but by saying, this is what I choose to do. This is how I choose to live. This is what I choose to make every moment, not just like once in a while, like when we watch TV and say, well, I'm lucky I didn't choose that way, because that isn't the way it goes. You may walk outside and meet violence anywhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think my family was more, I don't know, they didn't really control what I watched and things like that as much as other parents did. And I saw a lot of weird things when I was young. And I wonder if I got desensitized or something. So I saw this, not long ago, there was this medieval TV show. It was just on. And then this guy got disemboweled like a animal being butchered. And I thought it was the most horrifying thing I ever seen. But then it was awful, but I wasn't really personally affected by it. And I was kind of thinking, in my living room, I was kind of thinking, wow, that used to happen to people. I'm sure it has. And I'm here sitting in my living room eating chips, watching this thing, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought really wow, I was born in a great era. Despite all the things happening in our world, wow, at least that's not happening to me or my.
Yeah, but the thing is, that the violence, if we see it, is present, is there somewhere.
Right.
And so we can't just say, oh, you know, we're lucky because, oh, we're here and not there, etc. Because it can happen anywhere. And
Right.
so what our thing is to widen our understanding about the nature of the world and understand that if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I'm suffering with this or that problem, you have a wider understanding of what's going on. And if you go out and you meet violence, then you have an even better understanding the next time somebody comes to you.
It's that, so besides that, we have our own problems. I don't think that our own problems in this era is any less important than what happened back in the days when people were more violent. Because it's just, we have different society now and we have different problems. I don't think we can't marginalize our problems just because it's less physically violent. And I'm sure that kind of stuff is still happening somewhere in the world. And just because we don't get to see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's somewhere.
Yeah, it's not that you say, I don't have to associate myself. It's saying that even while you're watching it, you just remember where you actually are. So that whatever negativity or whatever emotion or thought comes to you, you're aware of it. You don't lose it. If you get lost in the program, you have this connection to the program that's like a one-way super highway. It goes and back and forth, and it mostly comes to you because you're lost in the program. So everything in that flows into you. And when you are aware, it can't do that. It comes to you, but you're totally aware of what's coming to you. You're aware of what you're feeling, aware of what you're thinking. So it doesn't slide into your being unnoticed. So when you sit, you know that that's what you're going to work with. I don't think you have to dissociate from it. And I see it as a problem like when you're dealing with the precepts. And the precept says, do not kill, and you're in a situation where you have to kill snails in your garden or ants all over your kitchen, or it's a difficult situation and you're coming to terms with something. When you watch a TV, you have to make your own peace with what you saw and understand why that had that effect on you. I think probably part of it is everything in our lives is not something for entertainment. Everything is here for us to learn from. And if we use it as entertainment, we get lost in it. And if you get lost in it, you forget yourself. And if you forget yourself, you're at the mercy of whatever comes in on you. Alberta.
On the topic of like reacting to things on TV and stuff, some stuff I learned in psychology, I was wondering if maybe you could comment on it. We learned that with the exception of scuttling bugs, almost every fear that a child tends to get that's severe is based off the parent's reaction when the kid's young. And they've done experiments where if a kid picks up something and the parent is like, oh, we don't touch that, the kid tends to not be scared of it but just knows to avoid it. But if the parent's like, oh, that's a really big deal, you should like feel bad or feel like reaction, the kids tend to hold on to that and they tend to actually become phobic of the object. Does that kind of tie into your talk about like not holding on to like a feeling towards it, or?
Well, that's the things we unearth when we're sitting meditation. You bring those up and look at them. You don't really have to go back and say where it came from. But you just look and notice that that's what it is. That's the actual situation. If you find that your emotion is stirred in a certain way, you don't say, oh, why did that happen? Or how can I get rid of it? You mostly look at it and say, what does it mean? Why is it here? What is it doing? How am I handling it? And you just let it sit there and see what happens. Our whole thing is to understand who we are. And you can't understand yourself, really, if we avoid the negativity in the world. You have like a very small range of who you are without it. But if you want to understand yourself fully, you have to explore all of those dark areas as well, and you have to get to know them. But why you have that reaction is you, June, why you feel that way. Not why Stacy would feel a different way, or somebody else, I might feel a whole different feeling from it. The question is why you felt that way, and what you've done with that since. And if you saw that a second time, what would you feel? Or do you just avoid the whole issue from then? I mean, I've known people who've had the similar reaction to seeing a fish head cut off.
Well, see that's why I think it's a matter of how much desensitized you are, and I am pretty much, you know, like, some people can't even look at little, you know, anchovy on their thing because it has a head on it, but I eat it, you know, I eat the whole thing.
In the South where I was, one of the places they served was fisheye soup. No, but the thing is, whatever you do, it isn't from your past experience that we're going to find the answer. It's only in the present where you are now, and you're unearthing all of these things and looking at them with intelligence, with awareness, not as somebody else's problem, but as yours only. And looking, when you see it outside, finding the connection between how you feel and why you felt that. That's the main thing. So when you're studying it, it's like doing the precepts. You can't solve the precepts, every one of them, because they seem to be like an unsolvable problem many times. But you still have to deal with it and work it out and find out what your reaction is, how to deal with it, and maybe struggle for years before you come to some understanding of it.
So, regarding the precept, there is do not kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people take more literal approach to that, and they're vegans, and you know, some people go really far with that, and I eat meat, and some people don't, and they'll tell me like they just can't accept the fact that they're eating this thing because it's so gross, like where it comes from and what it is, and it's like dead piece of meat sitting there for how many days, and you're eating it. They just can't like deal with that, and so like, should I be concerned why I'm okay with eating that?
No, I think you should just work it out to the point where you understand why you do and understand what you really want to do. You have to.
If I know.
If you're not, if it's not a problem for you, eat meat. But the point is, when you study the precepts, you have to make peace with yourself and what that says and what you do. You have to first understand the precepts come from you as well. So you have to find what that space is between the precepts and you. And what was it, the sixth patriarch lived with hunters for a long time, right after
Fishermen.
he left the temple. I thought they were hunters.
Take your pick.
What are the precepts?
Well, in this case, the precepts are do not kill, do not lie. And some people may take the word lie to mean something extreme. And so they will be brutally honest. And it also says do not hurt other people, do not cause any harm. How do you become brutally honest and do no harm? How do you find peace between those? So it's a hard practice because it doesn't concern anybody else's practice. Whether people eat meat or don't eat meat does not concern whether you eat meat or don't eat meat. It only concerns with how you want to deal with it. It's your problem to work out or not work out. If it's no problem to you, then it's no problem to you. If it is a problem to you, then you have to wonder why it is. So the precepts are individual.
But if it's a problem, then I should wonder why that is. But I think that even if it's not it seems like it's not a problem to me, but I feel like I should think about why that is too.
Well, then you should think about why you think that. You can't. Nobody can let themselves off the hook because the bigger part of us understands what we really want and what we really believe. And even if we can fool ourselves on the surface, we have an interior part of us that never lets us off the hook, that always understands where we are. Okay, 1 second, a minute. Is this?
I have a little comment.
Sure.
You did not kill that animal,
Yes.
period.
Yes.
You may eat the meat
Yes.
that whatever in your plate. You did not kill that.
Nor was
That-
it killed specifically for you.
But that may be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are still faced with that piece of meat. and if you have discomfort about it, then you have to explore the discomfort because the issue is not about the meat. And it's not about people eating meat. It's not even about the existence of meat. It's about your feelings about it when you're dealing with it. So you find the peace in that, whether you can say somebody else killed it or somebody didn't kill it, or I can't really kill, etc. It doesn't matter, because when it comes down to it, how you feel about that piece of meat is the important thing. You feel about it.
Isn't there a cause, like,
Wait a minute, let me get Mark here.
I just wanted to say that Dalai Lama actually, by medical order, eats meat. And
But we can't use that. And,
I know.
you know, I
No,
say,
you don't.
no, listen, I say that because for years I comforted myself with that when I was eating meat. But you can't. You cannot comfort yourself with anything except your own clear mind. And so whether it regards every great teacher, our teacher ate meat, you know, it doesn't make any difference. It still has to do with us and how we have come to terms with it. It has nothing to do with anybody else in the whole world, no matter how exalted they may be and they eat meat. It doesn't make any difference.
And I also wanted to say something. Thank you for the lecture, for the words, because you know, it's not just you know, I was recognizing as you were speaking how influenced I can become by commercials, not just, you know, and the need to say, wait a minute, I don't need that, or wait a minute, I don't have that condition, I don't need to ask my doctor about this medication, and it's really wonderful, like what you were saying, is to ground back into where am I, you know,
Where you are.
yeah.
But some commercials are really smart. I watched a really good commercial about 2 years ago of a party. There's a really big party and everybody is dressed in incredibly beautiful clothing, and this woman comes walking in and she's dressed beautifully, and she comes down and gives her fur off to somebody and walks down the steps, and as she's walking down into the group, a string from the group, one of them comes and attaches to her. And another one comes, and then, and little by little she walks, and she's covered with these strings attaching to her as she's mixing around these people. And suddenly she looks down and sees them and turns around and walks back up. And as she walks back up, the strings loosen and fall away, and she walks out the door. And that was the whole ad.
What was it for?
I don't even remember. I was so overwhelmed by the images that I thought, wow, this is the way we are. You watch TV and all these strings come out, you know, and you think, do I really want these, you know, or do I, you know, and if it's emotion, it's like even bigger strings, you know. So you ask yourself, is that what I really want? And that's everybody's personal choice. And I would like to say once more, we know the truth of our understanding of things. We know the truth of how we feel about things. We cannot fool ourselves, even though our surface, us as we think we are, will often fool us into thinking, well, I want this, I want that, or I can be like this or that, or I'm not that way, and etc. But our interior always knows better, knows the truth. And that's what we have to make real peace with. Sandy.
on the meat issue, when I became a vegetarian years ago, and I looked at it not so much from the precept, do not kill, but from, I think I read something by Thich Nhat Hanh, I can't remember, but it was when I first started getting the feeling of the connection between all of us, and when I thought about eating a chicken, and I remember washing them and cutting them up and holding them in the sink, and it was like a little baby. It had little wings, and feet, little, you know, legs. And I looked at it, and I
Now
thought,
we have that image.
you know, this was a living being. And, you know, it had a personality, and cows can be very nice, and donkeys who get eaten. I mean, there's all kinds of animals that get eaten that actually have a mental capacity, they have emotions, and just my desire to eat meat is something that is causing the industry for meat. So there is a causality there. If you desire meat, then there is you are complicit in some way in an animal's death. because we're all so attached, and that means we're not just people, but people, animals, every sentient being is attached. So that's what really put me off. And I remember talking to you about, well, if you went to someone's house and they only had meat to offer, that you would eat it graciously and thank them, you know, for giving you the dinner. And I looked at that incident, because it's happened to me, and I realized that, you know, it wasn't my intention to eat meat, so I didn't feel complicit in the death. The animal had already been slaughtered. But it isn't something I actively go out and do. I eat vegetables. And part of that has released something in me when I made that decision. I felt like a weight fell off of me because I decided that I wasn't going to be part of an animal's death, not intentionally. So I felt it was my intention that made the difference. What was the intention? Now, when I had cancer and the only thing I could eat was chicken, I took that as medicine. And it wasn't pleasant, but it was the only thing I could get down at the time. And as soon as I was able to, I went back to my vegetarian diet. But, and the other thing I wanted to say was on the watching TV kind of thing. When I was in my late 20s, I moved to San Francisco, and it was on New Year's Eve, the first day there. And we ended up in the emergency room because of something my husband was going through. And I'm sitting there, and they're wheeling in a guy, and he's got a knife sticking out of his chest. And it was so shocking to me. And we sat there for hours, and the guy was laying there for hours till they got him into a room. And then I went home, and the first thing on TV, it was different in San Francisco than here in LA. The first thing was the first murder of the year, and they showed the gory body. It wasn't like LA, they didn't do that in LA. And I got so turned off to the news, so I stopped watching it for a long time. But then as life went on, I just picked it up again. I mean, people watched the news, I was around those people watching news, and then I married Howard. And Howard has gone from healthy to sick. And during that transition, he's become a TV watcher. And he only likes to watch true crime. So it's true crime. It's not a phony movie that's been made up of somebody's imagination. It's real crime. It might not be so graphic because they try to keep the graphic part away. I mean, you see blood spatter all over the walls. But I found that I can't sit and watch these shows and enjoy them. But I want to be part of being around Howard. He likes the support that I'm there in the room with him. So I learned to read, and I tune out the sound. So very rarely am I ever caught up in it because I'm doing something I want to do at the same time. And if I'm not reading, I'll go and paint, or, you know, I used to walk the dog, he won't let me do that. But it's like, because of all this transition and, you know, seeing all this crime, my sitting here has kind of let me see it as, it's not so much the violent act, it's that, or that people are so inherently evil. It's that there is that capability in us. We all have that ability to kill. I mean, even if it's a mosquito or whatever, we have that in us. But there are really only bad acts. People aren't inherently evil. Maybe there are some that are born that way, but predominantly, to me it seems like it's, you know, it's an act.
Yeah.
And it's something that can be forgiven.
I think nobody is inherently evil. I don't think anybody is inherently good either that way,
Yeah.
from the way we think of it.
Right.
But I think we have all possibilities in us, and we are either living a dark life because our choices led us that way, or we're living a life where we're trying to take care of others because our choices led us this way. But our choices, every moment, have to be aware. We can't ever say, well, I'm not in that now, but we could do it in the next minute.
Right. If you're
I'm just
aware.
saying, if you slack off and let go of what you're doing, then you can easily slide off either end. So it just means constant vigilance all the time to not fall off the dark end of things.